And what's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Check Your Brain podcast. Here, wherever you are listening to this, whether it's on Patreon at patreon.com/Tony Mazur, TonyMazur, or YouTube for free, which I'm going to put this one out for free, and on the podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcast. My name is Tony Mazur, and thank you for listening today. As you heard there with that musical interlude, The Streets of Philadelphia, the Bruce Springsteen song from, goodness gracious, that was 30 years ago that movie came out. And let me take a sip of my big 64-ounce Wawa thing. So we're going to have a very Philadelphia-centric episode today. Although he's not, you're not originally from Philly. You have roots in Southern California. But, and by the way, joined here by Philly D. Philly D, how's it going, man?
It's going awesome, Tony. Thank you so much for having me, man. This is I'm looking forward to this experience, my friend.
Yeah, this is it's cool getting a chance to talk to you. And Philadelphia is one of those towns that I have some weird affinity for, even though it's like one of those towns I like to visiting, but I can never live in. Or at least maybe I could see myself living in the suburbs and, kind of whether it's, but it's just, there's no parking. I can't get around Philadelphia.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, my friend. Yeah, I mean, to go back to answer your earlier question, correct. So little background on me. I was actually born in Spain, raised in Southern California, outside of a Mexican barrio, like outside of Los Angeles. So, I mean, I grew up being the white kid in my neighborhood. But yeah,
East LA.
Well, so no, we were like San Bernardino County. So we were,
okay.
Yeah,
you were a little bit out there. Yeah.
Yeah. We were at the foothills of the mountains. So we were basically just like inland, more or less. But yeah, no, it's yeah, I was born on basically like a ranch, like a little 1-acre ranch in Spain. Then we moved to the city basically in Cali, and then we move out here to the East Coast, and it's like very rural. So this is where I'm like, I agree with you, bro. I enjoy going to Philly. However, not going to live there.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
It's there's a lot going on, so you can be nearby and still call yourself Philadelphia, but you don't have to live there. But first, before we get to anything we want to talk about in this podcast, let's get the plugs out. Like, what is exactly what you do? I guess your elevator pitch for the podcast. What is your platform? What do you do? Just so we can get people interested, and if they're listening to this, then they can shut my podcast off and listen to what you have going on.
Oh, thanks, bro. Thanks. Yeah, but hey, we would throw the love around because just like you, we do the same thing. We're looking for raw, organic conversations. And the cool thing with that is my co-host is actually my best friend of 30 years. And so him and I have been having these kind of conversations where they're raw, they're organic. There is no propaganda or rhetoric, or we're trying to, push a position. It's really just expressing yourself and then being heard and validated. And then somebody adds to it, and you keep the conversation rolling. And, at this point, we've just kind of turned on the microphones because it's like, originally I wanted to record our conversations because we're hilarious. Like, we're dads, so we got like corny, punny, horrible dad jokes, as well as movie quotes. So we just have a lot of back and forth with like good energy. And I wanted to record that to try to make like sketch comedy out of it. Lo and behold, as we started recording more and more, we just kind of looked at each other. It's like, dude, this is what it is. It's just us talking. And we're trying to promote that for not just us, but for everybody. So we always tell everybody, it's like, hey, this is our gift, like an example. Just go out, have conversations, talk to each other, validate one another, just be a part of it,
And where can we find you guys?
So our bigger thing is we're on YouTube if you want to catch the 100% unedited, all video, but you can get us on iHeart, Spotify, Anchor, and Apple, all as I'm Tellin You. That's IMTELLIN apostrophe. There's no G. It's not telling, we're telling. So I'm Tellin You. If you look that up, as well as ITY Studios, that's the production company that we have. So.
You said you're a dad, and I see all the tattoos. It's really interesting. I was thinking about this when I was a kid. You'd see every so often the dads, like my dad had a couple of tattoos, but he was a police officer, and they were hidden. And he had 2 tattoos. And well, one of them is the classic story that my mom still kind of regrets to this day. My dad has a Yosemite Sam tattoo on one arm that he got in the 70s, and then I think around 1990, I was a kid, and he calls my mom and says, hey, can you do me a favor? And she's like, what? He's like, is the Polish flag, is the white on top of the red or the red on top of the white? So she told him the answer, and she's like, why? He's like, oh, I was just wondering because I'm getting a tattoo with that. And she's like, God damn it, I should have told him the wrong one. So he was just drunk and getting a tattoo. But in those days, yeah, maybe you got a couple of tattoos, or you're a war veteran, and or you got your best gal's name, and then you married another gal. But nowadays, tattoos are so completely mainstream right now. There is no taboo with a tattoo. So now those tattoos you get when you're 18, 25, now you're a dad, you're in your 40s, your 50s. And I mean, I like, I'm looking at the ones on your arm right now. Those got to be, probably several years old now, right?
Yeah. So, yes, I have
And the reason I say this, I think people who have a lot of tattoos have an interesting story to tell.
Oh, dude, bro, I could to explain what my sleeves are is I mean that's a whole thing in and of itself, which I mean I'm happy to tell, but yeah, it's I do have that. I was 18, got a tattoo, which is currently being covered up with the rest of my left sleeve. It was a design that I had. My friends took me to see a friend. He's halfway through, and basically they all now take that time to inform me that legally he's blind.
Oh,
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they're getting a laugh out of it, but they continue on. They're like, no. So he's so colorblind that he legally can't drive because he can't see the difference between the red, yellow, or green lights. So it's like, okay, all right, Jesus Lord, you guys gave me like a heart attack on that. But yeah, no,
this is why we don't have dogs drive.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so my sleeves and my back are actually all one piece. So I mean, from the first tattoo I got, which again, I'm 18, so I got a tattoo because I'm cool. I got a tattoo. Oh, check me out. I was very fortunate to find my artist, who's actually at this point my little sister. We've known each other for over 20 years. She's just an amazing woman and an amazing artist, and because of that, I've always just been put into this position where she's like, if you're gonna get a tattoo, it's gotta mean something. She's always put it in my head. It's gonna be there till the day your body dies. Like it's gotta mean something. So from the get-go, we just kind of started designing, and yeah, I mean, we're talking probably close to 15 or so years now that I've been working on my sleeves and my back, which again are all one piece, which my right side is hell, my left side is heaven, and my back is purgatory or earth, or the in-between. And my sleeves are color because they can be interpreted all different ways. It's like, because heaven is heaven and hell is hell, so it's like it's all colored, it's all defined, whereas my back is all gray wash because it's open for that interpretation. It is that in between, so there really isn't color to it because you're not truly seeing difference. You're a part of what is a collective, almost like the yin and yang. I also call it the id, the ego, the super ego. My tattoos really are about who I am internally, and I'm okay with externalizing it and showing the world that I'm working on balance. I've had the evil in my life, I've had the good in my life, and now I need to find that balance in between. And so
Yeah, that's the one thing about tattoos. I have tattoos, but one thing that you hear is, I think they said within the first year, I don't know who came up with this bullshit statistic, but they said like 80% of people who get a tattoo within the first year, they almost forget the meaning, why they got it. But I think everybody, when they do sit down in the chair, they go get the design done, they send it to, or they show whatever the artist, or they pick out an artist on Instagram. Now that's the big thing, which I think is a great thing, is just go through Instagram, go like, no, that person does cartoons, this person does great faces, this person does the watercolor, which talk to any tattoo artist, they can't stand doing the watercolor tattoos now. But the meaning of a tattoo, it seems that a lot of people, it kind of turns into, it goes from, this is very sentimental every time I look down, then others it's like, yeah, it's just a cool design now at this point. So I think just like a song, like any type of art, whether you created it or you commissioned it, it probably takes on different meaning as time goes on. Where if you're a 20-year-old who comes out with a hit song and it tops the Billboard charts, well, you're still singing that when you're 65, and you made millions of dollars and you tour the world. That song probably, every night you have to play it, but it probably has to get some new meaning, as opposed to when you were a struggling songwriter when you're 20 years old. So I'm assuming it's probably like that with tattoos, where if you got one when you were 18, but you're 50 now, It's like, okay, I'm not the same person, but it's evolved with me now.
I mean, I can definitely agree to a lot of that for myself as well. Yeah, I mean, case in point, my first tattoo I ever got, I said I would never cover it up because it's the one that got me to want to get tattoos and be okay with externalizing my more internal thoughts. Because I mean, that's really what it is. If the way I would express it is the day I die, if they lay me in a casket butt naked and you can just see all of the ink that's on me, it should tell you my life story.
Mhm.
And that's what all of mine mean to me. But yeah, again, the original one, which I was like, I'm never gonna cover that up. That's the one that's done it for me. 20 some years later, I'm like, nah, it's a piece of shit. It's gotta go.
Just well, my mom was always one of those where she said, "I brought you into this world unmarked, and now you've marked your body." And I'm like, "Well, my brother has a birthmark on his port wine stain on his neck, so he was kind of marked. So he should be the one getting the tattoos, right? If we're gonna play that game." But you know what? I'm like, "You're an artist, mom. Isn't a body a canvas?" Now that didn't go over too well.
you
What,
know,
you
it's
got another one?
well, it's funny that you mentioned birthmarks. I'm actually in the middle of editing an episode that's coming out this week with Artie Hoffman. I don't know if you know who he is.
Mm-mm.
He's a comedian. So he's a comedian, but he's also a medium. So he's like smashed them together. He dropped knowledge that apparently this is the supposed information. So I don't know if it's true. This is what he said. If you have a birthmark on your body, that's supposedly where you were killed in your last life.
Oh, well, goodness. So Mikhail Gorbachev, we know what happened to him then.
Yep, somebody took him out, probably, right? Yeah.
That's weird. It's like those old wives' tales of whenever you get the chills, it's because somebody stepped over your grave.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah, it very much could be one of those things. I'm a big believer in energies. Kind of like Tesla talks about energies, frequency, vibrations, and I mean science dictates this kind of information. But then you look at all the different religions or isms, and they also kind of dictate that same kind of information, and yet we can't agree upon it. And it's like we're all saying the same thing, but in different terms. It doesn't make sense. But I do very much work towards that idea where if it feels right, if it's something that my intuition says, yes, I can go with this, then that's my jam at that point. But
and that makes for a good when you do podcasting for storytelling, because not every podcast you just rip on. Like there's so many different types of podcasts out there that some can comment on the news, some can just turn the mic on and just talk for an hour and a half. And the storytelling makes for good conversations, and that's probably why you guys got into this. But not only do you have a podcast, but you have the platform too. How's that been nowadays, where everybody and their cat has a podcast? So how do you manage? And I say this almost rhetorically, like I'm asking myself this question too.
of
How do
course.
you manage the waters of the podcasting universe where everybody seems to have one? How do you get it out there? How do you market it? How do you promote it? And what sets you apart from 10,000 others who might have a similar concept?
Yeah, that's I'll be honest, because we've been at this for over 2 years now. Again, it started as just a joke where it's like, bro, I want to record our conversations. There's some gold in here. You and I could be up on a stage, just some back and forth, like a good comedic duo. And it didn't evolve to that. It became this. So first 2 years, I mean, honestly, all right, so there's going to be a lot to, I mean, that was a big question. So, long story short, 2 years of us being on YouTube, we were struggling to hit 10,000 views. In the past 2 weeks, we've swapped over to doing video, picked up a publicist, and started just getting a continuous guest list where we're now booked for like the next 3 months. Fast forward, it took us again almost 2 years to try to just struggle for 10,000 hits. In the past 2 weeks, we've already had like 13, almost 14,000.
Yeah.
So
So, but like, have you found that formula? Have you found something, or is it a case of just continuing to put something out there and it's going to find an audience?
I would say it's more of we've been so I have a business background, but I also have a psychology background. That's what my education is in, as well as what I do business wise, career money wise, is handling business, but from the mindset of peoples as individuals as well as collectives. So it gives me a grander understanding or a wider perspective of order, in order to put all that together, which kind of just with me and my host Gemini, because we've had these accepting conversations at the core. This is what we do for our show. That's why I said again, this is what I think has been setting us apart from everybody else. Because like you were saying, is there's so many out there, but these ones are talking about the news. These ones are pop culture. These are current events. These are comedian specific. I mean, there's a niche to it. We are. I mean, we just literally coined this phrase. My host did. If you want to feel human, come see us. And
Yeah.
we have such an open, honest, accepting platform for conversation that it doesn't matter who or what or where you've been. The more interesting the better. If you're out there right now and listening, you're like, nobody would want to listen to me, I'm nothing special, I guarantee you have at least one life experience that makes you different from other people. Not better, not worse, just different. And it's those differences that we need to celebrate and accept and validate, because we all have human experiences. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to have that human experience. And for us to not accept ourselves or others, I mean, that's just you're diminishing this overall experience of life being a human.
Yeah, that's there's so many niche podcasts out there that are fascinating, and they get so many views. And I remember this in the days. So I've been I started in radio when I was 18, and I was starting to do podcasting when I was 19. Well, I'm 34 now. And even though we weren't calling it podcasting, we were calling it archiving at the time. And so, you're talking about 2007, 2008. And what was fascinating was, in those days, you were still dealing with more of you had to deal with variety in whether it's regular radio or even to a certain extent internet radio, when we were streaming or using what was called Justin TV or whatever was popular in those days. And you still kind of needed that little bit of a topic, because you didn't want to get too obscure. So like when Joe Rogan started talking about MMA, and I'm talking about, this is Joe Rogan 2009, he would talk MMA, and a lot of people like, yeah, I like your comedy. I like when you guys banter about stuff, but I'm going to peace out with the MMA stuff. Well, then start an MMA podcast. So then he has a separate podcast where him and Eddie Bravo do some stuff. And then that really spawned this generation, where, to the point where my wife listens to a podcast on a Boy Meets World, which is apparently a big podcast on the iHeart platform, but it's a Boy Meets World podcast where they have guest stars, they have some of the members of the show, and they'll go through every episode. And you say, like, who's going to listen to this? Kind of, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if you did I had a joke about this years ago. I said, I'm going to watch all 23 episodes of the Chevy Chase show, when Chevy Chase had a late night show.
I
And
remember.
obviously it was terrible. Who would listen to that? There might be a couple of people. So it's about knowing who your audience is and what your mass appeal, what you can bring to the table that's going to be different from a lot of other people, and your point of view. So again, if you do a news podcast, or if you're commenting on something and you're conservative, what is going to set you apart from the Dennis Pragers, the Ben Shapiros, the at the time, Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity? And if you're have a left-wing point of view, what's going to be different than what the hosts on CNN or MSNBC would say? So what's going to set you apart? And that's the struggle for, even to this day, a lot of people, as we head into, God only knows what the medium's going to look like in 5 years.
Yeah, well, and so going back to what I was talking about, we stepped into it in about, within our first 2 years having crap viewership, we really understood who we were. We as adults, as humans growing, we started to come into our own more so. And our show is really just an extension of us. So as we kind of came into our own acceptance that we just accept everything, we kind of decided, I was like, dude, this is what we do. This is what makes us different from everybody else. This is why we can have anybody on our show, because it doesn't matter if you're Joe Plumber or, the A-list actor of the day or the biggest Twitter, who, it doesn't matter if you're, bottom of the totem pole, top of the totem pole. It doesn't matter how society sees you, you see you. Everybody has a valid point and a valid experience as a human. And that's really what we chronicle, is the conversations and the understandings of that, the growing with each other, as stone sharpens stone or iron sharpens iron, so does, one man sharpen another. We're firm believers in that. I mean, we have 3 core points that we came to agreements on a while ago. our show has to have at least two of these three every single time. Is we have to be educational, we have to be entertaining, and we have to support our community. And when we can actually click all three of those in a single set, that's when the magic really happens. So when we get these local guests on where they get to shameless plug, but then we also get to have that human experience where we're educating ourselves as well as the listeners, but also just pissing ourselves laughing, because we do. I mean, I want to say we probably spend half the time sharing stories and the other half the time just literally, side bursting, rolling on the floor, can't even be on the mic because we're just cracking up so hard. And there's plenty of education and community support, and just it's you got to know who you are. I think that's the bigger thing. So forget what you're doing, business wise with your show or whatever else. Once you really understand who you are, when you know what your why is, Simon Sinek, great author, really good economist type, he coined the phrase of, know your why. Once you know what your why is, it can define all of your decisions. Why am I doing this? Well, I want to promote this. Well, in order to do that, I have to do this. And so once you realize, hey, this is how I need to live my life, all of the questions, the answers just come to you because it has to fit your why.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. I'm just distracted by the beer that's right in front because I'm doing dry January right now. What exactly? What am I looking at here?
So, long story short, you're the first to hear this, because I've just finalized it. We just picked up a sponsor, which is Round Guys Brewing out of Lansdale, PA. I'm actually their sales rep. The owners are my friends. I've had a restaurant with them. But yeah, this is our number one selling beer, Liquid Swords. It's a double hazy imperial IPA at 9.6% alcohol. It's like a soft Vienna lager. So when you get somebody who's like, I'll never touch an IPA, they're the most horrible thing, blah, blah, they buy the crap out of this. This is our number one selling beer.
And what's the one you're drinking there?
This is Classic Girl. So, all right, we do musical references. So Liquid Swords is Jizza from Wu-Tang. It was his first album after being with Wu-Tang when they all did their solo careers on top of it. Classic Girl is Jane's Addiction. We got like Beastie Boy beers, David Bowie beers, like all sorts of stuff. But yeah, this is a fruit style double hazy that has no fruit in it, but you get notes of orange slice and tropical Skittles.
Okay. Well, it's fascinating because we're talking about the world of podcasting, but it's the same in the brewery in that now everybody has. Remember, at one time, a podcast, you couldn't tell somebody who's above the age of 50 what a podcast is. What is that? Nowadays, they may not listen to them, but they at least know, oh, it's a thing I get on my phone or whatever. And I'm not talking 50, I'm talking about 70 now. We're progressing with the age. And I kind of felt the same way with the beer industry, because I have delivered beer in the past. I would work with a distributor, and we'd, whether we'd deal with Miller Lite or wouldn't deal with Budweiser. It was a separate company, but we would deal with delivering Twisted Tea, the High Noons and everything like that are the seltzers that are very popular. So, but this beer explosion in the last 15 years. I remember when in the 90s, my dad would get Sam Adams, and that was like the gold standard of craft beer. Is like, I could get my Miller Genuine Draft, or I'll have a Bud Ice because I saw the Penguin with the doobie doobie doo commercial. Remember those?
And yeah, bro, hell yeah.
But it was like at one time, that's all you did. You just drank the beer that was available. And when you went to the local store, you went to the Wawa and you picked it up, and there was, oh, okay, I'm just going to get a Bud or whatever. And all of a sudden, in the last 15 years, this craft beer industry has taken off. And you're starting to see it may a little bit of a decline in the Millers and the Buds, and you're starting to see this rise. And now to the point where it's not even so much that the main town, the New York City or the Chicago or the Philly or the Cleveland or whatever has a brewery. It's now your local downtown with a population of 5,000 has 3 breweries now, and it's their own brewer that's there behind. It's the guy who's pouring you actually created it in a keg in the back and has it for sale in the local store. So this whole thing is really taken off, and that's another thing I'm wondering, as far as like the same with podcasting, is where does the beer industry go? Because if you want to talk about an industry that jumps on trends, look at the seltzer industry the last 4 or 5 years.
Right. Yeah. No, we so and this is why I associate myself with Round Guys. I've known them for 8 years. I came into their company as a consulting chef. So I had a small consulting firm. I have a very diversified background of industries that I've been a part of for many, decades at this point. So I have very eclectic knowledge in that stuff. So coming into their company, the one thing that's always been very consistent with them is something that's very core to me. Like I just said, those three things that we do for our show is educating, entertaining, and community support. They have always been that, and that is their core as well. So it's very easy for me to get behind the brand because that's what we care about. So, I mean, the beer is an extension of that. So, I mean, all of our beers are like, dude, I'm not a beer guy. I'm a tequila dude. I love drinking Patron. Like, I drink Patron like it's nothing. I love that stuff. So, for me to be able to say, yeah, I like your beer, not only that, but say, yeah, I actually drink your beer on the regular, huge. Nobody's ever been able to do that other than this company. And I think
Did
it's
that take? How long did that take from the? I'm assuming the first time you tried an IPA, it's like, oh, it's bitter, and then you're like, okay, I could taste the different. I could taste the grapefruit or whatever it is. Like, did it take a little bit to jump on board?
So I have, again, I'm a chef. Like that was I got into the hospitality industry at 13, bussing tables, and then I worked my way into the kitchen, became a prep chef and pizza chef and all these different things. So I've always had a palate. My big thing was these craft beers. There's always been a very large percentage of almost like we're trying to outdo one another, and they overwhelm you with so many things. So my mouth is just like, holy crap, it's this and that. And there's never been anything where it's like, oh, okay, there's balance, there's a little of this. And the beers that can take you on a journey, just like a good scotch or a good wine, there's going to be an entrance to it. There's going to be the middle section that just gets your palate all that happiness, and then a finish of some sort. A liquid beverage should take your mouth on a journey. It really
Mhm.
should. So yeah, when I first started trying them, to me, I'm just like, I don't get it, because it's either just all hop or all malt, or there's something about it that you're slapping me in the face with it, and I'm like, I can't get down with that. So I was with this company as a chef, and my guy, who's the brewmaster, he's the main owner. Same thing. He's got a palate. He's a 6-time Great American Beer Fest judge. Dude has a palate. It's refined. He knows how to use it. So being a chef and having a palate myself, he was always like really super proud to be like, bro, you gotta try this beer. So like every week he had a new brew, and he's like, I need you to go try it. And every week I'm looking at him like, bro, I don't like beer, probably not going to enjoy it. I'm like, I don't know why you're asking me to try these every single week. We'll do literally week after week after week. It took about 3 months to the point where finally he was just like, hey, I want you to go try. Normally I'm just going to be like, no, I'm not. I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to go try it. I'm probably going to like it, because every single beer he made for every single week for those months, I liked them. And I mean, he got me drinking saisons. Most of the time when I would have a saison, I'm like, it's too pucker. It has like almost that sour tart kind of component, or too much champagne where it's like overly bright. And he's like, no, this is a saison. This is how they're really supposed to be done. And it's just like, holy crap. Yeah, that's us, man. That's the front of the store. That's the pub. Yeah, well, 11 years we've been there, man. It is a beautiful thing.
That's amazing. Once again, well, of course, the Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah, we actually just got named like third best cheesesteak in the area, and not just like our area, but for the Philly area.
Really? So did that rank above like Jim's and Tony Luke's and all those places?
Well, in a sense, because what we were doing was a local poll, so it's like a local newspaper. So obviously, more of the local cats like we are going to get picked up or whatever else. But yeah, it was we're also, if you ask the local people, they're like, yeah, no, if you want a cheesesteak, you go to Round Guys, because it's just that's what you're gonna get. Oh yeah, we make tons of beers, tons of drinks. We actually even make our own, like you said earlier, seltzer. Our brewmaster kind of got told, hey, you got to cut the carbs, cut the alcohol, the sugar, all that kind of stuff, health reason things. So he goes to his doc and he's like, well, what if I made myself a seltzer? Well, the doc didn't say no. He didn't say yes either, but he didn't say no. So he was like, all right, cool. Well, he made a seltzer, and dude, I hate seltzers. I think they're like one of the dumbest things in the world. I actually like ours. They're good. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I am not. I've done the seltzer. Here's when I'll drink a seltzer. If somebody gave it to me if it's the only thing available or if it's the last thing I'm drinking that night. That's about it. Like, I'm not going out of my way to sit down. Like, it's amazing to see people go sit at a bar and like a brewery and get a White Claw. What are you doing? You know, like, I understand you may not like beer, but my God, but that's what it turned into, is that this is the new generation of Zima. It's the new craze of, like, get the Jolly Ranchers. We're all having Zima tonight. And it's like, oh, I don't like beer, but I want to get drunk, but I also don't want to put the pounds on. It's like, yeah, that's what tequila's for.
Oh, bro. Yeah, you said Zima and then you said tequila. You got my attention. Yeah, grew up with the Zima. Yeah, 8 years old. That was the only kind of stuff that was what everybody was drinking. So of course we drank it because that's what we get our hands on. But yeah, dude. Oh, we make we make everything. And the cool thing is we do the musical references. So we have tons of awesome references. Yeah, the last waltz from the band. Oh, you do that
Okay, yeah.
order. Yeah, if you like coffee, I have friends that literally take that. It has such a coffee tone. For Monday morning, they'll do that beer with a little bit of cream, sugar, and ice, and they have an iced coffee at 10% alcohol, and nobody knows.
I mean, I'm not a coffee guy. Like, I don't drink coffee and I don't like the coffee beers, but my wife does. She likes the coffee beer with the peanut butter and all that, the porters and stuff. I'm not a stout guy. I'm not a porter guy, but you know, but I see why people like it, especially in different areas. And, I noticed this, and since you're from California, uh, how much different the beer industry is out there as opposed to where it is in the Northeast, where we are, is that, where I'm at is, yeah, there's a lot more porters that are being created. There's a lot more German lagers, I guess, in certain areas too, depending on the ethnic population. But then you go out in the West Coast, it's a lot of lager. I mean, it's lager central out on, in Southern California. I was out in Oceanside, and I went to a brewery, and I'm like, do you guys have IPA at all? Like, there's like one on tap, and it's like 17 different lagers. Like, this one's a light lager, this one's a hef, and like, what are you talking about? I want I want a beer right now.
Yeah, if you head a little bit more south to San Diego, the IPA pops up a little bit more heavily. You'll get the local breweries down there. Because I mean, I was actually just out there for Thanksgiving. My kid is in college out there. All my family's out there, other than my parents and I. We live on the East Coast.
Well, that's where Stone and Lagunitas is from, right?
Correct. Yeah, we actually popped through Stone. They were super packed, and we said "F this," and we went to Imperial Beach Tavern instead, and had dope tacos and margaritas.
I think I've been there. I've been, like, that's the Imperial Beach is the furthest beach until you get to Tijuana, right?
Yeah, you can see Tijuana from anywhere you stand. You're like, you see that over there? Yeah, Tijuana. Yeah, no. As well,
I was there because I had a Tony Gwynn 394 ale, whatever it's called. Like, he had his own beer, I guess, and his son is like one of the brewers, I guess, at his the brewery that's down in San Diego. But yeah, I was at that Imperial Beach Tavern. I'm like, I may as well try the local flair. What can you recommend? And it was actually the year that Tony Gwynn died, so I'm like, well, I got to honor Tony Gwynn's 2014 and have to have it. But yeah, the craft beer industry is just, it's a crazy industry that I thought maybe 10 years ago I wanted to be a part of, and I don't know if I want to do this anymore. It's like, I've dove headfirst into the podcasting thing. I've done radio, I've done all that. I don't know if I can dive into the craft beer industry right now. Maybe bourbon, maybe tequila, maybe like a vodka or some other distillery, but I don't know about beer. And I'm a beer guy, but it just seems so competitive out there that I don't even know if I want to try that.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, everything is very much like that. So all industries, as at least for me, when I were to do any kind of research, look into, or just try to understand it, because I mean, I love learning things. My brain is very much about pattern recognition. It's like, one of my innate abilities. It's just, my gift that I was given. And so as I do this, the one thing I see is, everything seems to have those same exact kind of patterns, where it might be, a much smaller grouping, but if you look at the numbers or the percentages, if you were able to quantize the data, you would see that there's that kind of consistency, where it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's, there's just enough of them that it's like, how do you stand out? What makes you different, and that's why I very much love this company, partnered with them to have a restaurant. We're partnering sponsorship now is because we actually give a shit. And that's why I feel I don't care who you are, what you do, just give a shit and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, and people are drawn to others when they see that you have a passion for something. That's one thing I can always pass on to people.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like you were saying earlier, man, when you're telling a story, the more you believe that your story is just something amazing to you, the more your audience is going to be drawn, because you're going to have so much more passion inside of you that you're going to be almost overly dramatic, but without being, like kitschy about it. So it's you really verge upon that line of, ooh, I'm trying to sell it, where instead it's like, dude, this is really dope to me, and I'm the type that anything in my life at this point, if I'm going to do it, I need to be able to be passionate about it. So if I ever talk about it, I don't care if it's golf, aquaponics, making tacos, beer, tequila, my show. If I'm going to talk about it, it means something to me. And yeah, there's going to be amazing stories in that, because I feel that they're amazing to me and they mean something, and I've learned from it. I've grown. So
I've since you've been on both coasts now, I've found this interesting because I love traveling as well as being, whether it's California. I've been to Philly a number of times. Probably going to go back again at some point, do some stand up. I have a buddy of mine who lives out there, and he wants to get me to get me on a couple of shows out there. But he, what's interesting was in the pre-social media days is how these different towns were like had like vast differences. And I don't know if I see that anymore. It almost seems like a lot of these areas, because of the culture of craft beer industries and, like upstart taco joints and restaurants, that it seems like we're entering a time where the Asheville, North Carolinas, the Austin, Texas, some of those strange kind of oddball cities like the Portland, Oregons, have kind of infiltrated the middle of the country. And you can go, like I said, to the place down the street that has 10,000 people in its population, and the people there, they've got the man buns, they've got the beards and the sleeves of tattoos. Like, are you from Portland? It's like, no, I'm from Upper Darby. It's like, really? Okay, well, interesting. So that's what I'm kind of concerned is like the homogeneity, I guess, if that's a word.
I think you
Of
conjugated it well enough. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I conjugate
I got you.
sometimes 3 times a day, depending on what you're.
Well,
Anyway,
my
but
guy.
and I was thinking about this recently because of the gambling that's legalized here in Ohio, is the FanDuel and the DraftKings, is that you don't have to go to Vegas anymore. You don't have to go to Atlantic City anymore if you want to go gamble. Your town probably has a casino. It probably in the last decade or so, gambling has been legalized in your state, and now sports books, where I see it from my coworkers at my day job. They're all sitting there on their phones. They're not on social media. They're placing bets on parlays. It's like at work, and it's just that's how it is. So I'm always wondering how, and the bigger point that I'm trying to get to right now is how we can kind of preserve our culture and have San Diego is much different than Philadelphia. But if you look in certain areas, it may as well be the same town, because it's a lot of how we as a culture have kind of just had that homogenous feeling where it doesn't matter where you're going to be. Everybody can just be this. And I kind of like the ethnic feel of going to there's a Polish village in Buffalo, or you get in a German village in such and such town, and you go up to Detroit and there's an Irish area, Corktown. And it just seems that that's kind of gone away. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because you've been bi-coastal now. You've been all across the country. How much have you seen that change? And were you surprised that when you eventually made it over to Philadelphia into Pennsylvania, was it much of a culture shock to you?
Sure. All right. Yeah, first off, going back to, like you said, the craft beer, it seems like every spot you go locally, there's just, there's all these different local spots. And, the guy who was brewing it, or the person who was brewing it, is the same person that's pouring it. So if you go back to the olden days and still pretty much a little bit of now, over into Europe and stuff, when you would travel, the only beer you were going to get or the only wine you were going to get was from that region. So when you traveled, it was only local. So you didn't have to search out the local spots. Everything was local. So, as you're saying, yeah, I agree. There is this homogenous idea of just melding everything. However, with the craft, specifically, and do bourbons, whiskeys, beers, wines, seltzers, all of it. When you go to these areas, having this kind of component, this localized, where it's like, yeah, you could get us here, there, wherever for the most part, but you're here, and this is one of our big things. It's it kind of still gives that localized, super unique aspect. So even though there's a KFC and a McDonald's and a Starbucks in all of these places, there's still this congruent idea of capitalism or corporatism or whatever. You can still get this hyper localized aspect when it comes to artisanal liquids and foods at this point, which I think is great. Because I mean, yeah, if I go anywhere, whether I've been there before or not, first thing I want to do is I talk to the locals. Hey, where do you guys go?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask the concierge like, oh, where's the good place? Oh, you're going to no. Don't tell me where you're sending everybody else. Where do you all
Well,
go?
there's Pat's or there's Geno's. Which one you want to go to? It's like, no, I want give me the real Philly cheesesteak if you really want. If I want to go there, I'm not just going to, because Geno's has the neon signs and Pat, Stallone got a cheesesteak in 1976. It's like, no, give me the real stuff.
Yeah, because you got like Steve's and Jim's and so many more, and that's just in Philly. And like I said, you get outside into the suburbs where we're at Round Guys at the pub, and we have one of the best cheesesteaks in the area. I mean, it's rivaling that of what is in the city, but we're not commercialized. We give a shit. You know what I mean? So yeah, I very much enjoy, and I've definitely seen, because I mean, I've been at this point in my life, I've been to 3 different continents, like 7 or 8 countries, shit tons of islands. So I mean, I very much enjoy the local culture. When I go somewhere, it's like, yeah, I want to hang out with you all. What do you guys do on Saturday night? Cool, let's go do that shit. So I think that there's still very much a localized component of that nature when it comes to food and drink. So no matter where you go, it can be as consistent, whether you go to Denver, Colorado, or freaking, somewhere in North Dakota, dude, the cities are all going to feel the same, but there's still that potential for that localized talent. So I think having, craft, again, not even beer, you could be bourbon, wine, seltzers, anything. Having craft is just, it really does accentuate your local economy and your local community, and just, it's a good thing.
Yeah, and you can get drunk too. Absolutely. Even though I'm doing, like I said, I'm doing the dry January, and not completely. I drank a little bit into January, but I realized how much I I was trying to figure out why I wasn't losing weight for a while, and then I'm like, oh no, I can lose weight. It's just the drinking. I like to drink. I like alcohol. I like fast food. I like, give me a good fast food burger and fries and a craft beer, and you go, oh, so that's where the extra 10 pounds went. I see. And then, you keep it off. But, at some point I'll be back at it, and then getting a chicken Philly over at Wawa when I'm on the East Coast again. But now this is this is a great conversation here. And once again, get the plugs out. Where can we listen to you? And yeah, I'd love to talk to you again sometime down the road.
Well, yeah. So before I plug, going to your point, you're going to be on the East Coast soon,
Yes.
bro. If you're close enough, please, by all means, we love having in studio guests. I'm a chef, so I cook for everybody. It's very much going to Abuelita's house. It's like you're going to see your grandmother, and she's cooking for you. She's made it super homey. Whatever you want to drink. You get the good chair, like all that stuff. When you're out here, bro,
Okay.
let's make this happen.
Yeah, I got your number. I got all that. Well, next time I'm out that way, and like I said, I'm trying to head that way. Although I think it's Eagles time right now, so there's I know a lot of comics who are in that area, like some friends of mine who do a room in Vineland in New Jersey, and it was right around the time when the Eagles were still undefeated and the Phillies were in the World Series, and they're like, "Yeah, we can't do a show right now because it's just
Nobody will show up.
Philly's like Titletown right now, even though the Phillies didn't win the championship, but it was like everything was going on in Philly that they're like, yeah, there's no point in doing a show right now.
Pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, no, dude, for real. When you make it out this way, yeah, let's because even if we don't do something show wise, bro, let's just hang out. Let's have some beers. Let's, shoot the shit. I got some cats out here I can introduce you to. So I mean, we love being able to throw the love around. And that's the great thing about the show that we do is making all these connections. We don't get to just support our community, we get to support multiple communities. So we're really starting to, we used to be hyper localized to our area in the Philly spot. And I mean, we're really starting to spread between our internet radio station, which I actually just partnered with the owner of that, which is a friend of mine. So I'm now an owner of an internet radio station. But we've been expanding from this hyper localized, Philly area to we have people that listen to us in Czechoslovakia, Sri Lanka, Australia, Finland. Like, it's crazy the kind of reach you can get with all this stuff. But yeah, you can so I'm telling you, I am, apostrophe I am TELLIN apostrophe YOU. I'm telling you, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, as well as, again, YouTube. You get all 100% unedited, uncut, end-to-end video, audio, everything. So we truncate all of our stuff to a radio edit because we're also on directionsandmusic.org. That's the radio station that I'm now an owner of. But that gives us a worldwide platform of just audio truncated into a 1 hour platform. If you want that 120 minutes, or because we'll do an hour and a half, 2 hours, but we have to cut it down for all, radio edit. So when we have that full uncut YouTube, I'm telling you, we pump it out like that, But again, we promote everybody. So when we do our shows, we don't just have our sponsors. I'm putting all my people on blast and I'm pumping it out to all my cats. I mean, I got, Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, Northern, Southern. It doesn't matter. Like, we're trying to expand the globe to having dope ass conversations, loving yourself. We finish every show with the same statement: be good to yourself, be good to everything else. That means to be internalized good to you, and then externally make it all good as well.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to. I prefer the in studio guests. See, that's what bothered me during COVID is that everything got so normalized to do Zoom stuff. And yeah, I get it. If we're on the other side of the country, it's one thing. But like, you could have your next door neighbor on. It's like, hi, well, we're on Zoom. Hey, but turn your camera on. You're on mute. You're muted. Like, no. How about you come over? So I was preferred, especially in my years of working in radio. It was nice having somebody who was in studio and you could talk face to face and have a conversation, as opposed to somebody who has poor internet quality or a bad, or they have their AirPods that aren't charged properly, or they're like, we can't hear you, and then the volume goes down, and you're like, you know what? Let's do this in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna be back out there pretty soon to try and do some shows and spread the word, and and drink some good craft beer in the eastern part of Pennsylvania. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, bro. If you come in-house, not only do you get our local craft, which, by the way, just because we picked up the sponsorship, you didn't get to take part in this. Part of our sponsorship is we're going to be sending this beer out to our guests before we even do our show, so that we can all actually drink together.
Well, yeah, that sounds good to me. I'll make sure I go out to the brewery and say, yeah, can I get a Bud Light?
Yeah, bro. Again, if you come into town, I will take you to the brewery. I'll get you a full tour. I will give you the pub. I'll treat you like a queen, my friend.
And my wife does the flights, but I'm fine with having like full size beers as my flight. Usually they're like, what do you have? 4 or 5 in a flight? And I'm like, oh, well, we have 5. And they're like, okay, I'll have 5 full beers then. Gee, I wonder why I had to stop for a little bit. I didn't have to. I just want to. So, hey, Philly D, thanks so much for doing this, and look forward to being on your show, and hopefully be out on your side of the country as well pretty soon. But go check out the show. I'm telling you. And you guys do some pretty good work, just really good work. And I'm again, it's great talking to you. Great seeing you in face to face here.
Yeah, and the extension was, not only will you get the craft beer of the tour, I have Patron, bro. we pour the tequila heavy around here. So we'll have tacos, tequila, all that good stuff. And yeah, and thanks for having me on. This has been an absolute delight.
And by the way, we all know that good tequila and good vodka does not give you the hangover that the cheap stuff does. If you're getting the what was it, what's the vodka I'm thinking of, like the cheap plastic stuff where it's like a gallon jug for like $4 at the grocery store. That stuff will give you a hangover for 3 days. And it's because it's so cheap, it like cheaply made and cheaply sold too. When you get the good stuff, that's not going to give you the hangover that you think you're going to get.
Oh yeah, when I tell people I drink tequila, they're like, "Oh, I don't drink tequila." I'm like, "I'm going to stop you there." What I heard was I don't like shitty mezcal.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, we get it. You had a bad 21st birthday. That's about it.
Jose Cuervo is not tequila, bro. Just because it says it on the bottle does not mean it is. Just because it's gold doesn't mean that it's natural coloring. No, hard pass.
Well, it's great talking to you, and yeah, let's talk soon.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Appreciate it. And hey, man, be good to yourself. Be good to everything else, brother. I appreciate